All right, I think we are on. Hi, Mel.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. So I don't want to take up too much of anybody's time. This will take, I'm thinking, no more than like 30 minutes, but just wanted to bring you on today, Mel, and chat with you a little bit about like safety and things that parents should be focusing their attention on, focusing our energy on. Um, for anybody who's watching this who doesn't know me, my name is Courtney Ashworth. I am a holistic health and life coach. I run one-on-one coaching and group coaching programs, and I have a membership where you can get some meditations. And I am hosting this series all month long. This is the first in a series called Flow into Fall to help kind of support the community, support moms with getting our minds right, looking forward to the fall season. This is the time of year that really does tend to speed by with kids going back to school. So this felt like a good time to kind of figure out where we should be focusing our attention and energy. Um, and for our first call, I have Mel here with us. So Mel, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, my name's Mel. I am a friend of Courtney's and a previous coworker. I am a mom to 6 kids that are all in the public school system, and I've also used one of Courtney's programs, Ignite Your Life, and so I got some great benefits out of that, and I want to just come back and kind of share that with everybody else.
Cool. Thanks so much for being here, Mel. Yeah, I was going to share that we used to work for the same organization, and it was really cool, like kind of going from knowing you professionally in that sense and then getting to really know you through the group program, more of the personal side of you and as a mom and all that you do to care about not only your own family, but your community.
Yeah, I definitely have a vested interest in the community because my kids go to school here. They walk to school here. So I take that extremely important to me to keep my family safe and other families safe.
Mel, can you share how many, just for people who aren't familiar with you, how many kids do you have and what their ages are?
Yes, we have 6 kids in the public school system. 2 are grown adults, so there's actually 8 in total. But 6, they range in age from 6 to 16. So we have 2 in elementary, 2 in middle school, and 2 in high school right now. So,
The full
uh,
spectrum. So you obviously are a wealth of knowledge. We're going to, I'm sure, just touch the surface today with some of the stuff that we plan on talking about. But I know that I'm not worried about saying this, but I think people should feel comfortable to reach out to you because you do have a lot of experience with kids of different ages.
absolutely.
Cool. So I guess I will start by asking you, maybe since we're talking about fall, what are you looking forward to this fall?
Well, I am looking forward to my winter squash coming in, and my kids going back to school. They're eating me out of house and home, so I am ready for the start, so I don't have to be the lunch lady anymore. But that is the next step because school sports start, and our kids are really excited to get back into their schoolwork and really earning the ability to play their school sports.
I like how you said that, earning the ability to play school sports.
Absolutely.
So academics are a value for you and your family.
Yes. So we don't harp on academics. It means you can only get A's. We talk like if you get a C, strive to do the next semester just a little bit better. But it's a way to give them something to, or the reward is playing the sport. And like schools, they have the expectation that their students are passing. I have that as well. And they have to earn their ability to play the school sport of their choice, particularly high school where they're facing upper level classes, sometimes AP and honors classes. They have to keep those grades up with the ability to play those sports and even keep their driver's licenses. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really, I heard you say like it's not necessarily about the grade that they're coming home, it's about the effort that they're putting into it.
Right. So if they're coming home every night and telling me they don't have homework, I start to ask those questions like, you have some classes, you probably have some homework. What are we missing here? So I start to dive into that and really talk about consequences if they cannot maintain their grades. And I think that gives them a level of control because no one's stopping them from doing their homework. No one's preventing them from. They have the ability to get all the supplies and things that they need to accomplish those things. So they have a consequence if they don't reach their own goals that they're setting together with me.
Yeah, this is actually reminding me of something that I think any law enforcement officer notices like right away once you start going to calls for service and talking with families is just for parents to really feel confident to be able to talk to their kids about those things and have like open conversations with them.
Oh yeah, open conversations, even the uncomfortable conversations are going to change the respect level in your home, because your kids do see the families that don't have these conversations. They see what happens to the kids. I mean, not right away, but they will see that there are heavy consequences to the kids that don't have the parents asking, "Where's your homework? Where are you going? Who are you hanging out with?" um, how was your day today? You know, they do see the repercussions of that, and they're not always positive. Yeah, the kids can go out and do whatever they want, but in the end, like, they don't have that love and that desire to keep them safe necessarily. So the kids do catch on to those, but having those uncomfortable conversations. Who are you hanging out with today? Like,
Yeah.
who are their parents? What do they do? Like, having those expectations. What I ask my kids, if they're your friend, what's their birthday? What's their favorite color? Where, you know, where do they like to hang out? What do their parents do? You would have that information if it was somebody that was truly that you know and you can respect. You would be able to give that information without being embarrassed.
Yeah, so that's a good way you're both building like trust and consistency with your kids. Like they know that there's an expectation there that you're going to have an interest, like a vested interest in what it is that they're doing, who they're spending time with. And then it's also teaching them really like how to get to know people and things that you should be paying attention to with the people you're hanging out with.
Right. Because not everybody that you meet cares about you, and has a concern for your safety and well-being. So teaching them that now will help them later when they're adults.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. My stepson is actually starting high school this week. And so, or next week. And so, I know there's going to be like some branching out of friendships and relationships. So it does feel like a good time to really think about that and like, yeah, just
Yeah,
being curious about who you're spending time with.
Yeah, I asked my kids the first couple of weeks of school to just kind of sit back and watch, people watch and see everyone's behaviors and how they kind of express themselves, because then you'll find the right people that you fall in line with, that kind of work with who you are and your personality, and what your parents' expectations are. If you see a rowdy kid that doesn't have any control over himself, that might not be the person that you want to link up with, because you can be guilty by association.
Hmm. Yeah. So really teaching them like at first to kind of just observe, see
Yeah.
what's going on.
Don't worry about just trying to make friends, like jumping off, feet first, trying to, who's going to be my friend today. Just kind of sit back and see everybody, who they are, their personalities, how they act, the new confrontations, how they deal with those, and how they deal with their ability to dive into their schoolwork. That's really something that I ask my kids to just kind of sit back and see that. And freshman year was a pivotal moment for my kids. They could really see how people acted, and it gave them the ability to decide, is this the group of people that I want to be associated with? Because bad news travels fast in high school thanks to social media. So yeah, finding your people is really the best way to keep yourself out of trouble. But you do that by observing.
Yeah. Um, And I just want to say one more thing about that, because I think because we both have kids, on different ages. And I think that that is something that you can start really, really young of teaching your kid to pay attention to how other kids, like, what did you think about when little whoever did this or that? And like teaching your kid to start paying attention to what other kids are doing.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
also you can start it at any age.
yeah, absolutely. Talk to them about manners and how, like, did you notice that, at our table we have to chew with our mouth closed? Like, how did your friends act at lunch, or these people act at lunch? Is that oh, they chew with their mouth open. Like, oh, how did that make you feel? And you're like, it was so gross. I'm like, okay, well, you can always try to talk to them about it, but it starts with small mannerisms like that. Like, did they hold the door open? Did they say please and thank you? Were they kind to their teacher? So doing that at a young age, as early as kindergarten, your kids will start to see the things that they want to have in other people around them.
What would you say, just as like a mama advice for like maybe somebody with a blended family or someone who hasn't already developed this rapport with talking with their older kids? How do you get over that like fear of like, are they going to think I'm being nosy? Am I pushing too much? Am I, yeah, like, you know what I'm getting at here?
Yeah. Well, we do have our house is a blended family, so we did have those hoops to jump over, and it's really it's who you got to set that precedence. Like, yes, it's going to be uncomfortable and they're going to think you're being nosy, and yes, I still do go through all the kids' phones, even though I have an app on it that I can see things. But I want to know who they're talking to. I want to know what's going on so that I can have this conversation of like, what was this person talking about? This is something that concerns me. I really would prefer you not to be around that person. Give them some space. So it's yes, you're going to be considered nosy, but you're the parent. And I always tell my kids, and I tell them to tell the other kids that they come across, that parents who are invested in their children are the ones that are in their phones, that are asking questions, that know their friends, that know the paths that they travel. Because if something happens, law enforcement's first question is, who does your kids hang out with? Who are their friends? Where do they go? What's a normal routine for them? Because that's what law enforcement uses to try to locate your child if they end up missing or in danger.
Hmm. So let's dive into some of those things. You brought up a lot there. And I love how you worded that. The parents that are taking an invested interest, the parents that are showing attention and energy to what's going on in their kids' lives. So you mentioned an app on your kid's phone. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. I'm not in any way, shape, or form endorsed by this app, but I did a lot of research, and this is the app that I was the most comfortable with. I do pay for the app, so again, I'm not supported by them, but I love the app Bark. It's Bark. It has a little dog on it. If you go in your app store, so I found that to be the most rewarding in a sense of peace for me, because it gives the ability for my kids to know. My kids know it's on their phone. They have the app on their phone. I have it on mine. I have the parent control app on mine, and it sends me notifications and screenshots of sensitivity levels. So if I have a concern for suicide, it screenshots specific words and it will send it to my app, and I'm able to review it relatively quickly, and then I can actually further then go into my kid's phone and find out what's going on. So if they say the word die, it will screenshot that part of that conversation on the screen, and my kids are fully aware of it. They still have their conversations with their friends. They have the ability to check in on the app if they want to, and it to me gave me the most peace, because I was able to see if there's some crazy conversations going on, if they're talking about suicide, if they're talking about bullying, cyberbullying, if they're talking about sex, things that I know that my 15-year-old cannot consent in the state of Florida. So I want to know who's trying to kind of pull that out of her, trying to convince her that that stuff's okay. I look for those things. My sensitivity level is at the highest. You can actually bring it down based on your trust for your kids, or maybe that you're just not that concerned based on the things that you know about your kids. It's great because it gives you the ability to adjust that sensitivity level and really have that sense of peace that you're sending your kid to school with social media and apps and stuff like that, that you have a little bit of insight into them, so you're not blindsided by the question of, did you know your child was suicidal? Did you know that your child was having problems with cyberbullying or bullying at school? You're able to see those things because kids talk on their phones. It's just, you give them a phone, they're going to go crazy with it. So why not have just a little bit like a fly on the wall?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's really, really powerful. So you're not going behind their backs. Like you said that they explicitly know that this is on their phones. They can access it too. They know what's going on and they know that you're paying attention to it.
And they
But it
can't
just,
over parental controls. So
Mm.
it's really great that Bark puts parental controls also. Like I already have parental controls, but that's the agreement with my kids. You want this phone, this is what's going to be on it, and we're open and honest from the get-go. It's not like it just suddenly shows up on their phones. Like you're getting your phone for 6th grade. That's when we started giving phones, because they're walking to school. And then that was I was going to put Bark on it. Here's your parental controls. You have a certain amount of time you can be on your phone before certain parts of your apps start to shut down. And they don't feel overwhelmed by their phone being the only thing that gives them attention. Like they can turn and talk to people and have conversations too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when we were growing up, like we didn't have all of this access to technology and like I think I had a cell phone, but it didn't have data. Like I didn't have all these apps and ability to text all my friends and just that constant like stream of communication and information that's being thrown at them. And so it makes it easier on kids to feel like they're safe to say things that they shouldn't be talking about or that they should talk to an adult about, like you, like their parent. And so you're kind of letting them know, like, you can have this device. I trust you. I respect you, but there's going to be boundaries around it. I'm going to help you enforce them.
Yep.
Cool. Cool. That's, I had a question about that. I'm not sure if it'll come back to me or not. Oh, have you ever had like an issue of them feeling like it's like disrespecting their privacy? Has there been that conversation to come up?
Oh yeah, of course. It's like, why do you always get in my stuff? And it's just reinforcing the conversations that I've had from the get-go is because I care. Like I'm doing ABC, but it's because I love you. I want to know who you're surrounding yourself with and what relationships you're building. And it really, that type of communication with my kids, I think helps kind of them pay attention to signs of like human trafficking, because that's starting as early as middle school, where they send in their recruiters and it's other kids, it, I pay attention to that and I tell them, because I don't want you to end up like the kids that you see possibly at Walmart, when I make them go read those signs of the missing kids. And not every kid is a victim of human trafficking. However, I do talk about the stories where some of those kids are. And I tell them, I can't save you. Once you're gone, you're gone. And they're going to manipulate you based on the conversations we have. They're going to say, well, your mom's taking advantage of all your privacy. And it's like, no, my mom cares enough to know what's going on in my life. So I want them to have the courage to say that back to somebody and not just be in agreement with their peers, because those set of peers don't have someone who's, interested in what's going on in their lives. And, that's important to me. And yes, we have battled that and we're going to continue to battle it. But I hope that when it comes time that I'm no longer doing those things, when I no longer am looking into their phones because they're 18 years old and they live in their own homes or they have their own jobs, they're in college, that they remember the things that I have talked to them about. And when they start to see those red flags, that they can make the informed decision not to continue to dive into it. They'll make the decision to go the opposite direction or maybe ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's so beautiful because as awkward and uncomfortable as those conversations are now, where like teenagers really like that's just normal because they're starting to develop their independence. So it's normal that they're going to feel like, oh, you don't trust me. You're putting this on me because you think I'm a kid, what have you. And instead, you're just letting them know it's a safety net. It's just there to protect them. And, at some point down the road, they'll look back and recognize that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, if you don't mind, let's talk about traveling to and from school, because that was a big one for me.
Yeah.
I was a super nervous parent that was like, oh my gosh, my kids, like I dropped them off at elementary school, but going to middle school where we live, they can walk and ride their bikes. And I was like, anxiety the whole way, even though I know it's not far from my house. So my husband and I, like, we pre-planned it. We took the kids out like a week or two before school starts. Actually, we have the next kid that goes to middle school. He's in 6th grade. We're going to do the path with him. We do 2 types of paths. We do the path to school, on their bike, if they are a bike rider, and we time it. So we time it of what it would normally take them to get to school in the morning. And then we also do a walking one. If let's say the bike broke down or someone stole the bike, what they would do, we do a walking one. And we do it at, I tell my kids, make haste, like walk like you want to get to school. And then we do one where it's just kind of like a lackadaisical walk, like you take your time, so that I can do an estimated time frame of how long it takes for them from point A to point B. And the reason why is because if I get a phone call from the school saying your kid is absent from, whatever periods, I'm concerned because I know that I watched them leave, or I watched the garage door open or alert go up and tell me that they left, and I don't have a check-in status at school. That's one thing we didn't set up, but we did allow them to kind of follow their path to school, because I know law enforcement does ask, what is their path to school? Where do they go? So
why is that important?
Huh?
Why is that the first question that's asked? Why is that important to know?
So that law enforcement can backtrack where the kid would have gone. And that's typically you follow that's your first path. So law enforcement's going to follow that first, and then any deviations thereof, we can deploy other resources. But you usually follow the first and only path that that kid always does. For me as a parent, I would do that before law enforcement would come. I would follow that path, like, okay, looking around, where's my kid? I know that this is the only path we have. We talk about alternate routes, but it's only worst case scenario. So that's my second route. As I'm at that point starting to call law enforcement and say, hey, listen, because they send parents home to be that anchor, and then they start to deploy their resources. So we do those paths. It's knowing your path. It's really important for your kids. My kids also ride the bus. So my high schoolers, I make sure I know roughly how long it takes them to get to their bus stop. They leave at a certain time. And that way I know. I want to know where my kids are at all times. When they ask, it's 8 o'clock, do you know where your kids are? Absolutely, because I'm tracking them, But I also do know their typical paths because of what law enforcement likes to ask. So if it's not, the next question is, who are their friends? So the first thing is, what route do they normally take?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you do this at the start of every school year, or just as somebody's new? Because it seems like that would be something good to just kind of refresh onto, even if it's the same path as last year.
So since we do have 2 middle schoolers, one's already done it by herself, and this new one is now joining her. It's a refresher for her, and a refresher for us to remember, we know that it takes 24 minutes if they're taking their time. It takes 19. So we try to, play with the average there. But if it's starting to hit 45 minutes and they're still not home, there start to be those concerns. But I do like to refresh the kids that need it. And they know the expectations. Hey, listen, I know that it takes you 24 minutes to get to school. You should be home roughly this time, give or take a couple minutes. So if they're not home around that time, we start to make phone calls and check the tracking apps and stuff like that. And the other thing I wanted to point out, when our kids take these paths, typically for the week or the morning, depending on if I'm home or not, we will set a password for the day. And the reason why we set a password for the day is because there are people that will hey, your mom told me that she can give you a ride. Now, my kids know that that's an absolute no-go. No one's ever going to come over and give them a ride, regardless of where they work or what they do, because they can walk. They got those 2 legs. They got that bicycle. They can get to school. We have rainy day plans as well, but we set a password. And so the kids are automatically, they ask, hey, what's the password of the day then? And if the person can't answer it, then they know that there's something seriously wrong. And they can utilize their phones to call 911, take pictures, fight, run, get away, whatever they need to do, because this person doesn't have their best interest at heart. And so we try to find things that aren't typical passwords. Like I wouldn't use the word password. Your mom said the word's password, you know, but we use things that are special to us that nobody would know. And that's what the kid, they obviously know not to give it away, but they ask the person, hey, what's your password? Because we have had people offer our kids rides
Hmm.
because sprinkling or something like that. I'm like, nah, they can get a little wet. Like they can go home.
Yeah.
But we do talk about passwords, and that they're not, I tell them every day, you do not go home with anyone. If there is a predetermined person that they go home, they know who that person is, they know where they meet up, and they're already in contact with that person. It would not be something just, spur of the moment, like you're going down the street, you're passing, you know, the YMCA and someone pulls over and says, hey, your mom said you can come with me, or your dad said it's, you're supposed to jump in the car with me and I'll take you home, because that's how kids get kidnapped.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna.
Yeah, I love that. The password's a really good idea. And it sounds like you're updating it pretty regularly. It's not just
Yeah.
the same one that you don't ever talk about it again. The kids are well aware of it because this is a regular conversation.
Yes, and we want to make sure that we don't keep the same password, because sometimes kids slip and be like, my mom said the password is tree,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
accidentally give it to that person, and then they don't know what to do. They get stuck in an OODA loop. So we try to refresh that daily. If not, it'll last for a couple of days, and then we switch it to something else if I have concerns. But we also pay attention to the weather. So we have the rainy day plans, like, hey, listen, you're going to go to this location and I'm going to come get you. Leave your bike in the bike rack and I'll come get you, because the thunderstorm's just too bad.
Okay.
But yeah, we don't work on just like letting random parents take kids home. Like, we're
Yeah.
not
Not about that.
no.
I'm really something that I'm just thinking about too is how much this is probably increasing your own kids' confidence as well, because they have these devices that they have constant access to. They know that crazy people are out there. Like they see it, they see what's going on. Like people are talking about it, and so they may already be running these what if scenarios. What will I do if? How will I know if this happens? And so you're taking all of that fear from them and letting them know, like, hey, we can be confident, like we have a plan as a family as to what we're going to do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it helps that I live in the area that I work. So I typically know where offenders are, and you can access that through the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to see where your sex offenders are located, because that is something that law enforcement will first check if your child is missing. However, I think giving your kids the confidence to know what to do if something bad happens, or a safe location they can go to, if there's a local business that they can run in, and start making a phone call in case their phone gets stolen. We prepare these kids ahead of time, and it seems kind of crazy that we have to do that, but this is the day and age that I think we really have to have that open communication with our kids, so we don't have any more kids being taken. And this system that works for my family, I hope can work for others, in the future, so that their kids feel confident to go to school alone, and that the parents feel empowered to let their kids to go to school alone and feel confident their kids are going to make it there.
Yeah, that's so important. I think for one, when people have that confidence about them, they look less like a target. Like for a kid to be walking home, but you're just going to walk a little bit differently when you have a plan that you can feel confident and strong in.
Yeah.
And same is true for parents. Like you're going to feel more stable and secure and able to go about your day and everything that you need to get done, knowing that your kids are safe and that they know how to handle any situation that comes up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about communication and then prevention, and it gives you a purpose and just a lot of peace knowing that your kids can go to school. And then if you have a cell phone app, that you're able to pay attention to what's being said during their school day, or maybe what's being said afterwards if your kid's a latchkey kid. I know that I grew up as a latchkey kid. So my kids are that as well. And I know that's an old term. Like people are like, what's latchkey? But you come home and your parents aren't home and you have to kind of take care of yourself. So having my kids know what to do, they don't open the door for strangers. They know a way out if someone were to try to come in. They have a plan, and really planning with your kids gives, like you said, gives them that confidence that they can go about their day. But still, you still want to let them understand that things can go bad, so they still need to be aware of their surroundings. Describe whatever car, describe what the person looks like. So we talk about that too, is, if this person came up to talk to you, could you describe what their clothing is? Because that's what law enforcement is going to ask the kid. Like, do you remember what color shirt he was wearing? Do you remember what color car they had? So that in case this person took another kid, or it would prevent that person from taking another kid or trying to.
Yeah. Mel, this has been so helpful. So you've shared a lot about like just things that we should be thinking about, kind of how to talk to kids about it, stuff to put into place. I wanted to ask you just one more question, if you're open to sharing. Like, you've talked a lot about how like kidnapping is real. Obviously, human trafficking is here. There's a lot of threats that as moms we're being exposed to from the media all the time. And so I'm wondering if you have a strategy like outside of doing all of this prevention, having these conversations with your kids. How do you kind of let go of what's out of your control?
Well, practicing the stuff with your kids, and knowing what you can control and focusing on that, because there are things that you can't control. Obviously, active shooter situations, kidnappings in your area that aren't your children. You can't control those, but what you can control will give you that peace, the ability to wake up every day and have your kids go to their path of their school, or deal with the things that happen in their schools. It really is about communication. You have to remember that you aren't in control of the world. You only are in control of your world and what happens right here. And then those, precious jewels that live inside your home, empower them to have some self-control as well. And really, it just kind of makes blended families and, non-blended families.
Oh no. Mel, I think I lost you.
Got me?
You're back. I was like, what happened? Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of
but
sense.
I hope that was super cool. Helps me through with 6 kids in the school system. Conversations are ongoing. They don't just stop just because you pre-planned. It's constantly talking about them. And as you go through the school year, things morph. They play sports. I have kids that are driving. So, we talk about paths that you would normally drive. And
yeah, we didn't talk
it's
about
just
the dangers of kids
yeah.
driving.
Oh my.
I think that's a lot of the same advice. I mean, we could have a whole other conversation around that, but it's, again, the main message is open communication and being honest with your kids.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm honest to a fault. Like, I talk about all these things. I share these cases that happen in the world that you see on the news media that maybe your kid didn't see. But we talk about things like that, and it kind of opens their eyes a little bit to, oh wow, this could happen to me. This happened nearby. This happened. You may not necessarily be in Central Florida, but it happens all over the world. And just giving your kids those indicators of things to look for, and talking about it, the wheels will spin in their heads, and they will start to identify those things and make surprisingly good choices. And so you just have to trust your kids that what you're teaching them and the conversations you're having will come to good decisions.
Yeah, that takes a lot of courage to talk to your kids about like some of the scary, like dangerous stuff, but we can't keep them home. We can't always have them with us. And at some point they're going to move out and be on their own. And so you're really empowering them. Like, I mean, you said it's to a fault, but I don't know if I agree with that, because it's really giving them the power to understand what is real in the world and what dangers are out there and how to take care of themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you have something like that's just personal for you that you do like to kind of ease any anxiety that may still be bubbling up after you've done all this preparation?
Well, my anxiety starts to be in the quiet moments, when I go to bed and I'm like, what do I need? What did I miss on the conversations today? Is there something that I can, remind myself to say in the morning, because I'm not going to get to sleep right away. But I really have to take a moment to breathe, trust myself, and what I've been teaching them. Trust my kids, burn a little sage, drink some tea, and really know that what I'm doing has a purpose. And I will see that purpose come to fruition when my kids make those decisions, because you'd be surprised, it'll screenshot some things and your kids made a really great decision in a conversation. You're like, all right, we did it one time. Like, I'm hoping to continue. So I just have to look back and remember the things that my kids have made the good decisions on. When they have texted me, hey mom, I got to school today, they remembered. That makes me feel better. I tell them, hey, it makes me feel better knowing that you're okay, that you got to school or that you got home. Yeah, I can check your apps, I can check all those things. But if you just communicate to me, it makes me feel better. We got here safely. We're okay, because teenagers, and they're driving, there are kids that get into cars with other kids that they really shouldn't be in. And, before you know it, the passenger, which is your kid, could be the one that loses their life, but the driver lives. So I've seen it happen tons and tons of times. And I want your kids to be able to tell their friends to, hey, slow down. We're going too fast. The speed limit is 30 miles an hour. And mom tells me all the time when I'm driving, she tells me to slow down, so they can channel me to their friends and their other family members. And when you start to see that, it really does help ease the anxiety. And initially you're going to have it, but over time, I promise you that if you start to practice these things, you will see some things that are positive, and you'll feel a little bit more at peace of what you're doing.
Yeah, I love that. Really, really beautiful, Mel. Well, thank you so much for this. I feel like we touched on a lot of areas. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't bring up?
No, I mean, I'm always an open book. So if you need to call me back on and we need to touch on a topic, or if some of your viewers are really interested in something in particular, I'll come back and hit on that topic. But I think that we talked a lot about, communication, knowing your roots, pre-planning, knowing what your kids are doing and who your kids are with, and knowing their parents. Don't be afraid to have those conversations with parents. Hey, I noticed that your kid was doing XYZ on the app. You might want to, check your kids' phones. I've done that before. Even it's been a little uncomfortable, but it's like, hey, listen, like, I know what my kids are doing to you. So, yeah, just communication, planting, prevention, pre-planning, prevention. It's all got a purpose. And it gives you a little bit of peace for moms and dads who work for a living, and need their kids to work with them. It needs to be a family unit. You guys are a team. So you guys got to work together like a team.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, this was a lot of fun. I think very helpful. I took a lot of